Just to get started, for folks that may not know you, can we just do a quick round of introductions? So starting with you, Carlota.
Hello, thank you so much, Bart, for having us. This is super fun. So I am Carlota. I am based in California. So good morning to everyone that is listening from this side of the world as well. And I am a product marketing manager in Timescale. In Timescale, we build tools to help developers make the most of their data and their data-intensive applications. And we are the creators of Timescale DB.
Pretty good. No small feat. All right. This was like semi-planned and not planned about having a hat. Janki does happen to have amazing hair, so we can call that a hat as well. But the other person that's in here is the master of all hats, a man of many, many hats. Matt Yonkovit, for the people who don't know who you are, who is the hoss? Go for it.
Hello, everybody. Yes, I am the head of open source strategy here at Percona, and the affectionate term, the hoss for short. So you can see the nice little sign behind us. And so I've been at Percona for over 15 years in the open source database space. We do all things MySQL, Postgres, and MongoDB related. With a lot of course, Kubernetes and all of the other fun things that are available in that. So also host a regular podcast called The Hoss Talks Foss, and very active in a lot of different communities.
You are? It's difficult not to find Matt somewhere, particularly whether it's on YouTube, interviewing lots of cool people. Definitely has a lot of great content out there you should check out. Our last but not least is someone who I had the pleasure of meeting in person not that long ago. Folks, we are starting to do in-person meetups, all right? We have one in Turkey next week on Thursday. We have done 2 now in London, which have primarily been driven by this fantastic human, and her name is Janki. Janki, introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. I'm Janki. I work at Ondat, and I do all things marketing here. And I've been here about 2 years now. In the CNCF community with Bart running DoK London. So yeah, if you want to learn more, we're doing one in June. So we'd love to see you there.
It's going to be really, really good. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be incredible. We're going to break all the rules. We're going to set records. Anyway, that being said, all right, let's jump into the questions that we have for today. So when it comes to communication, all right, when it comes to communication in general, what are some of the challenges that you see typically where it's just like, oh, if maybe someone could help you out with that wouldn't necessarily happen? Let's start with you, Matt. What are typical challenges that you see when it comes to communication?
Well, I think from a communication perspective, getting the right mix and tone correct is important, especially the authenticity of the message that you have. I think there's a fine line between people's ability to consume messaging when it's on the heavy marketing side versus the heavy community side. And the mixture of those two audiences is really important to get right. You want to speak to the people where they are and ensure that they feel comfortable with the message and with what you're trying to say. And make sure that you're not only authentic, but very upfront about what you're trying to present. I think it's often difficult enough, especially in today's modern kind of global scape, to understand where you're trying to take your viewers and your readers on what sort of journey. And being open upfront is very important.
Completely agree. I think we can all agree with that. And like you said, we live in a day and age where we're constantly bombarded by ads of different kinds. And so the natural sort of not being 100% sure, feeling comfortable, or that we're being misled. So I think it's a great point. Janki, in your case, as head of marketing at Ondat, what would you like to add to that?
So from my perspective, I think it's being human. Like, everything's digital now. We obviously are coming into in-person events, but messaging needs to be honest. Everyone says these strap lines and things, but it's like, what does it mean? Like, giving it that human touch and bringing some humanity to messaging is really important. And I think over the last 2 years, I've noticed it more and more, especially when it comes to social media and things like that. Just doing, things out of the box, not just doing everything, because everyone's doing the same thing. It's really tough. The market's really tough, especially when you're just focused on digital. So yeah, I think human touch is a key win from my perspective.
All right.
Like all the things you do, Bart, for example.
Well, I know, but Yeah, but and also, I would also like to give credit to Matt, because the thing is, having that original touch. Matt, how many hats do you have? He doesn't know. He lost count. No, could you guess?
Yeah, so hundreds of. I have a whole box.
Yeah.
You've seen the box.
Yeah,
Bart.
I've
You've
seen
the box.
I saw the box. I saw the box.
You've seen the box.
I'm a witness. No, but it's true. But I think what I say with that too is that, and going on what Janki mentioned, is finding that touch, right? And it's got to feel right for you. I always tell people, like, don't just go out and copy and paste. You got to find something that works for you, all right? Taking this a little bit further in Carlota's case, because surprise fact, everybody, we should be calling her Dr. Soto, because Carlota has a PhD. But what I want to touch on this though here is a really interesting thing, all right? So you've been in the academic world, right? And so communication there obviously works in a certain way. And then coming into open source databases, being a company like Timescale, what are the similarities and differences when it comes to communication in terms of connecting with an audience? Is it as different as we might think it is? What would you say about that?
It's a very interesting question that I don't think nobody has asked me before, and I have a lot of opinions on. We should do a whole new talk about this, because believe it or not, of course the tone is completely different, as is obvious to anyone. Academia is completely formal and very stuffy, and never have to show who you are or what are your real opinions. But one of the reasons why I got very interested in product marketing and in all this space is because the real perspective is the same, which is you gotta stay clear and practical to whoever's reading you. So this is something that I keep finding more and more working in this space. As you all have said, and of course I agree, honesty is key, but I think another angle that we can put on the table is that it needs to be practical. This needs to be something that adds not only to your company, but also to the community when you read it. And believe it or not, when you do science, well, probably you believe it. Sometimes it's very hard to really make your point across. You can talk for hours about very little details, and really your point is not made. So this technical communication, I think, is similar to marketing communication in the space we play around. So this is an interesting mindset that is very similar.
Yep, that's good. And like you said, we could easily take that much further. A point that we have addressed a little bit in the community is, we got started in September of 2020. So at that time, well, actually, I got started in September of 2020. The community itself got moving in July. But that was pretty deep in the pandemic. So everything's been very much virtual, and that's presented advantages and then also other challenges. And Matt, you're someone who's very active when it comes to communication. What kind of changes have you gone through in terms of adapting your style? We talk about the importance of empathy, but empathy sometimes, I think the definition might escape us a little bit. Anyway, how have you noticed the sort of changes, improvements, and continuing challenges through the last 2 years that we've been going through?
Well, for that one, let me put on a different hat.
That's a good idea.
Because of course, we've got to talk about that. But no, realistically, I think we're all in the same boat here. A couple of years ago, the world changed overnight. We all were so accustomed to having DevRel or community teams be so focused on events in person, going and speaking, being up front in front of people, and then overnight it changed. For us, we had our conference that was scheduled like 5 weeks before the lockdown, or 5 weeks after the lockdown, right? So we're like, oh my gosh, what do we need to do? So overnight we turned to digital. And as Janki said, we're all now competing in the digital space, which is vastly different. So it's caused us to reevaluate all of the activities that we would normally do and start to look for new ways to connect and build audience and build groups of people who want to participate and contribute. So, Bart, as well as we do from a data and Kubernetes perspective, you start with a few people, you find the ways that you can connect and bring camaraderie and kinship with one another and build your programs, build your community around that.
I think that's a great point, and I think with a lot of that too, for anybody who's out there that's working this or starting to work in it, there's trial and error in all of this. It's not going to work 100% as you would like to the first time or the third or fourth time. So don't be too hard on yourselves when it comes to that. Janki, you've been at OnDat pretty much since the pandemic started. So how has it been in your case?
So yeah, it was a massive pivot. I joined the first day of lockdown. And it was mind-blowing, right? Everything was, okay, we got to flip it. We did all these meetups and, events like KubeCon. Now we're going virtual, and seeing justifying ROI every time, and looking at budgets and making sure that, it was really tough. We did in-person events. You saw ROI from, the leads you captured and stuff. But virtual events didn't have the same impact. People would come on, they weren't engaged. It was really tough to start off. Now we're getting it. And now obviously it's changing again, where we're going into in-person. So we're learning constantly. It's a constant, learning curve. It's been great. I think my biggest challenge was recruitment, finding good talent, because so many people were so adamant not to leave current roles, and it was changing. So everything's been a learning curve, from the campaigns we run to what kind of webinars we host. Everyone was bored of online digital webinars. So what do you do to kind of progress that further? Then it's all about content and creating good content that can be out there, and people can be learning constantly. So yeah, it's been an amazing 2 years here at Onda, and we're looking to expand and do more, and try new channels and new avenues. But yeah, it's hard as well at the same time.
Agreed. And I think there needs to be an understanding at an organizational level about exactly what these challenges are. And so we're not doing things as we did in 2019. We would love to be doing it that way, but we all have to be, relearning on the go. One thing I want to touch on next, because, anybody that's working in this space, when we talk about communication, we can also talk about developer relations. But in your case, Carlota, interacting with, and we said this in the beginning, what Matt was mentioning this in the beginning, we don't want to turn people off with our tone, with our messaging, things like that. In your experience, what are the things that have worked well, or also that haven't worked necessarily as well, when it comes to engaging, an audience that's quite technical, focused on databases? In the case of timescale, what have been your learnings there?
Yeah, this is very interesting, because also talking about the pandemic, but I was thinking where you, Matt, and Janki were talking, is that the interesting thing about what happened is that marketing became like the only growth channel for everyone all of a sudden, and online marketing specifically. So as you said, everybody became first very excited, a lot of opportunities, and then completely bombarded with all kinds of online content. So what you say, Bart, is the key, is like how I feel that now you need to stay, at least what have worked for us and still does, is first like put yourself in your own shoes of somebody that is not receiving one email a day anymore. That person is receiving 25, so it's not going to open them because it's very annoying. It's not, that person is not invited to one event every 2 weeks. That person is invited to 25. So how can you stay incredibly practical? Again, I sound like a broken record, but this is maybe it's because I'm an engineer too, but this is key. Is like what can I gain from this session practically right now? And very concise. I think conciseness is overlooked. I'm guilty of this. If somebody from Timescale is listening, I tend to write very long things. I just know I like to tell stories, and that's amazing when you do it. But also remember that you have a short time frame to tell the person why they should engage with you as a company, or in an event or community event, anything. So I think the pandemic has highlighted that a lot. Like, has made us think really hard. How can we stay really valuable to everybody? And in case of the community, it's even more important, because in the open source community, you need to stay valuable not only to yourself, but to everyone else in the community. That's gonna make a huge impact on how, it's the temptation is to talk about your own company, your own product, your own thing all the time. But the more inclusive that thinking is, the better it's gonna work.
Very, very good points. The attention market, has just completely changed and in our own community, we produce a lot of content. So we are very, we can say, proactive in being involved in that. But I think Yeah, I think it once again, it comes back to empathy. You know, if you can tell somebody in 3 words instead of 30, you know, you should probably do that. And I suffer from that too, because I love to write really long things. And I realized, like, oh, I probably shouldn't do that. And Janki's had to suffer that from my messages in Slack when we've been planning the DoK meetups in London. But I'm trying to improve. All right, it's the first step. Now,
They're awesome, by the way. They're amazing.
oh, anyway, whatever. So, like, I guess the next thing I want to get at, and the last point actually, is that for all three of us, you know, for all of us working in communication, and for anybody really, is, you know, I would say that our sort of area lives and breathes, you know, is on Twitter. All right, so there's going to be a Twitter focus, and all of us are going to have to write copy at some point. And for some people, it's really overwhelming. And once again, I'm limited in terms of how many things, unless I want to start making it a thread, things like that. Matt's getting a new hat ready. Oh, good.
I had to get the Twitter hat out.
Got
it's
the
the tweeter.
Okay.
It's the tweet.
That's awesome.
This is too awesome.
I love how serious and corporate the Twitter hat is.
Yeah. But it's
it actually flaps its wings.
Oh, I was not expecting that. That just leveled up the hat game. But I think but seriously, and I think it's a good idea maybe when you're on Twitter to put on a different hat or something, because Twitter is a very interesting space with lots of emotions and lots of feelings and once again, people competing on a digital landscape for your attention and your time. So how can you do it without being clickbaity, but also getting to the point and providing something of interest? So what I want to kind of ask all of you, is this more of an art or a science? Matt, how do you approach writing copy?
Woo! Well, that's a tough one. So I think it depends on what you're trying to say, because you know, people want to know other people, right? So people don't follow companies anymore. They follow other people. They follow communities that they're interested in. And so it's important that you don't just focus on your business activities and what you're doing. You share who you are, because I am more interested in following, you know, me as a person or you as a person, Bart, than I might be following Percona or following, you know, a company. So you want to have the right proper mix of things that are important to you and share your interest and show that you're a real person, along with that really important technical copy and the interesting things that are going on. I think what the key things that I look for are what's happening in the news cycle and how do we talk about those in a meaningful way, and just share your feedback and your opinions, and make sure that you're taking into account the different cultures that are out there. Everybody could react a little differently. One of the things with open source, if you haven't been in the open source game for a while, you'll learn it really quick. We are very passionate, and we can get, you know, our feathers ruffled fairly quickly with certain topics or certain things. So it's important to have empathy when you're writing there, but it's important to you know, have that authenticity of who you are and share your passions along with, you know, whatever sort of business copy you have. But I am more off the cuff. We have people who do more of the professional writing. So for me, I'm you know, I kind of write what I think, which sometimes can get me into trouble, but that's okay.
Well, once again, like you said, it's a style, and that in terms of values, that you put the value of being yourself and the human element of it, and that you, like you said, that people connect with people. You know, like a company can only really go so far. Great insights there. Janki, what would you add to that?
I would echo that, actually. I've realized in the times that we've done, you know, people posts versus, you know, technical, like, yeah, people want to learn about technical. They want to learn about, you know, pain points and how we're helping solve them. Like, but they want to know about who the company is, how they grow, what they do. And, you know, in the time that I've been at OnDat, we've kind of addressed loads of I'm so sorry. My son's just walked in and he's unwell. Give me 2 minutes, please.
No, but I don't want the ice cream.
That's okay. That's okay. That's okay. But this is your life. That's okay. These are one of these pandemic lessons as well of being human. We have dogs, we have cats, we have children, we have delivery people. Anyway, it's no big deal.
Anyway, so I was saying, so since I've been there, we've kind of done, you know, people posts when we've got new joiners, and, you know, and those are the posts that get more traction. You know, it's people wanting to know people. So I'm all about that. I think it is an art. It's not just a science. I think I am marketing. I'm a bit more arty than a scientist. So I would say it's an art.
Yeah. Good. Like you said, you do want to be tracking, you know, what's getting more engagement. But in your case, and I think a lot of us can agree, the things that approach the human side is really where the value is.
Yeah.
And so I encourage everybody in your organizations, get into that. Find out.
This is it. You need to create personas in your organizations that can talk to your audience. So if you're looking at a developer persona, you want to create developer personas within your company that are going to be able to reach out to them and touch them in ways that they need. If you're looking at, appealing to C-level, then you need to do the same thing. It's not, one fits all. It has to be like segmented. Yeah.
Great points. Good. Last but certainly not least, and we got to wrap it up after this, but Carlota, what would you like to add to this?
Well, I love this topic. I absolutely love writing. It's kind of my favorite thing since I'm a kid. So this is something that I have a lot of opinions on, but I will agree with you, Janki. I definitely think this is an art. And if you've done science, you know the difference. Because what happens with this is that I know there's a lot of marketing experts out there that will try to sell you that this is a science that they can measure, they can predict. And of course, as you said, Bart, you can, as I see the whole metrics insights game, which is incredibly important, don't get me wrong, but I see that as something that gives you more information about who your audience is, that helps you understand really what is happening. But at the end of the day, I think that as you both pointed perfectly, at the end of the day, this is like a personal, a human to human interaction. And we'll have like a gut feeling, like a thing, like a sensation that we can tell what something has been written with passion and with honesty and with excitement. And that is the thing that is very difficult to, one, predict, which is the scientific requirement. And second, sometimes even to express explicitly or to like teach. That's why some people really struggle with this. You can of course improve it, but at the end of the day, I think this is an art. That's what makes it so fun. If not, we wouldn't be doing this. Like a bot somewhere will be doing this for no money.
That's true. It's true. So I think that's the thing, and it's always interesting. As much as we're in a very technological world, these human elements cannot be ignored. They cannot be overlooked. And so that's the thing. Really, keep this at the center of your strategy about how you do things. Give yourself permission to fail. Not everything's going to work. I don't know how many posts I've put out since I started being active on LinkedIn and Twitter, but many of them have been complete disasters. And some have caused misunderstandings and anyway, and then you have to kind of backtrack or explain yourself. So anyway, but it doesn't mean that you just need to not try or, once again, copying other people. Figure out what your style is and then go express it. Well, that being said, Janki's got some very important business to take care of. She's got a child that definitely needs some attention. But on top of it, this was a wonderful conversation. And as we were saying, there's tons of different areas we could take this into. So I think we'll have to get back together to do a part 2. Matt's got at least 50 hats that he can get ready for. So we have the finishing hat. Thank you all very much for joining us, and looking forward to see you all in Slack, in KubeCon, and wherever we happen to be. All right? Thanks a lot. Bye, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Cheers.
It was a pleasure.